Hey everybody, Hank B here with Josh T, and we are our Two Cents Media. We came in today, we got a friend on the show. We're going to be talking about Diablo 4, which recently had its beta in March. With us is Cameron F., who had a chance to play in the beta. So going into it, Cameron and I both had a chance to play in the beta. Josh did not, but we came in it today to talk to Josh about his feelings about Diablo 4 at this point. Josh, going into it, why don't you tell us where you stand? Why don't you tell us your history with the series and where you stand on Diablo 4 coming out?
Well, first Diablo I played was Diablo 2. I'm going to say I spent a lot of hours, I'd say probably the most hours of my life playing Diablo 2 growing up as a kid. I went back and played a little bit Diablo 1 and wasn't a fan of it and went back to Diablo 2. And then, over the years, Diablo 3 was coming out. So I'm like, oh, exciting, cool. This is going to be awesome. Can't wait. Totally fanboyed over it. And then it finally came out, and I thought it was a flaming pile of dookie. I would say I gave it about 3 weeks. I mean, I beat the game, got to like one of the upper hell modes or whatever, and I'm just like, this game just doesn't hit the same. I mean, Diablo 2, you have like set items that are rare, you have unique items that are rare, the gold items, and like its market really seems like so much more valuable. Where Diablo 3, it's like, oh, here's a chest, here's 10 gold items, and then here's a little loot leg. You pick up this leg, and there's 10 more gold items, and it's like nothing is rare on there anymore. Nothing is valuable. And I thought that the whole game running off of a rune system for your skills was complete trash, because Diablo 2, you were able to go off of a skill tree, and you were really able to customize your character. Like, let's say if you were an assassin, you could be a flame assassin, lightning assassin, a trap assassin, and then a cold trap assassin, or you could just be a badass fucking melee assassin and have a shadow and all that cool stuff. And you can really lean one way or more towards the other and really make a difference in the gameplay of like how you want to play that character, or how teamwork moves with, utilizing those skills with a team and those harder modes. Diablo 3 just seemed too hacky slashy, laser beams, runes, and I don't know. It just wasn't Diablo for me, and it like hearing the news about Diablo 4 makes me very skeptic about wanting to try it. It's like guys like you, it's like I would rather you guys try it first. I can watch it to see if it's up my alley. Yeah, fair. Up your alley too.
So, well, okay, so now we know where you stand on it. So, Cameron, why don't you give us a briefer history of your Diablo time and how you felt about getting into 4?
So much like Josh T, I played a bunch of Diablo 2 growing up, got into Diablo 3, kind of the same opinions, played a lot more Diablo 3 than Josh T did, but definitely saw the system as just loot for days and nothing else. Like, that's all it was farm for endless gold items and hope to God that you get the right unique item. Min-maxy stuff, not fun. Hearing about Diablo 4, I was worried about a lot of the same things that he's expressed, because it just felt like that was the direction the genre was going for the series, especially. But with our access that we got to the beta that Blizzard put out last weekend, which is we really only got in about half the time on that, definitely had a big change of perspective, and obviously we're going to go into that here in a little bit, but more excited now than I was when they first showed that really beautifully cinematic announcement trailer. Because let's be honest,
I would have watched it.
Nothing if it's not going to be followed by a good game.
Yeah,
and we'll honestly be going into detail about how that wonderful game seems to be.
Well, to wrap up the whole Diablo history here, played 2. Played 2 while I was in the military. It was a big thing our unit did. especially on night shifts. Got into 3 a little bit when it came out. Felt it was just too hacker slashy, and nothing there captured me. It was just like, it was garbage. I felt it was just hot garbage. I didn't even stay with it for very long. I'm just like, this is not worth playing, not worth spending my time on. Tried the Diablo 2 remake they did because of the nostalgia, but it just wasn't quite there. And then I've had a lot of people ask me about 4, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that until a certain person who's currently visiting the chat said, hey, they're having a beta, and you can unlock some stuff. You want to try it? I'm like, ooh. And so I tried it, and of course now I'm like, okay, when's this damn game coming out? Because I'm like you, I did a 180 on how I felt about a new Diablo coming out. And at this point, we're going to try to convince Josh T about the merits of that. And we're going to start off with character creation. Why don't you talk a little bit about the character creation and the time you had spending on that? Because from my perspective, I sped run trying to get to the required levels to unlock certain cosmetics in the beta. So there's certain aspects of it I didn't quite get to fully utilize.
Yeah, sure. Character creation was actually surprisingly fun. Unlike Diablo 3, you had obviously the whole pick a gender for your class, and then that was it. You know, all your customization mostly came in how your armor felt. It was a very minimal graphics, so to speak, as far as what you could do with your character. But going into Diablo 4, the beta access, you know, we were presented with the 5 classes right out the gates, you know, the male and female for each class. And the one thing that felt really nice immediately was each class had its own exclusive body type, so to speak, as to give those characters a little bit more development. So, for example, my experiences were with the Druid and the Necromancer. All the Druid characters, big, stocky, you know, burly characters capable of wielding the power of nature, which is, you know, an awesome attribute. A lot of their character customizations were more runic or tribal in design to really give you that element of living in the wild. Whereas the Necromancer, which is the character I had a lot more experience with through the beta.
Who didn't?
Yeah, apparently
Who didn't?
choice, which I didn't really quite know until I picked it. I heard a lot about that from some of my other friends. But the Necromancer looked like a gaunt, almost, you know, a max, just scrawny little guy. Practically an undead in their own right. Oh no, Josh T had a little bit more muscle. But the overall character, but the overall character customization was more in depth. It's more in line with a lot of the RPGs we've been seeing nowadays. Several different hairstyles, eye colors, skin tones, tattoos, jewelry accessories, scarring, markings. Yeah.
Well, voice lines. Did they have multiple voice lines?
Here was the issue. There was not a whole lot of options. And by not a whole lot of options, I mean not at all. The character just sounded like your character. The voices were obviously different between male and female, but that is actually something that kind of hindered character creation a little bit, in my opinion, which I can get into later. But the character customization for 4 was much better than it was in 3. And even that was much better than it was in 2, because you had just locked-in genders. But it made me more attached to my characters going into it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, I actually got to pick my character and not just, you know, sample textbook Necromancer B. So that was definitely a big improvement. So you actually have a commitment to these characters because you spent the time making them look the way you want to.
So, Josh, do you have any questions about our experiences with the character creation at this point?
I mean, it pretty much sums it up. You know, you get a little bit more customization. You can really customize the face, not too much on the body, but you know, you get more customization, which, like he said, you don't get with 2 or 3. Well, what was it you said the last time? That 3, you just get to change color of your clothes. That's about as far as customization goes. But I mean, I look forward to making a character and really going through a customization and not speed running through it and then crying about it later.
Hey,
back to you, John.
You're mad you didn't get to unlock it, so shut up. Okay, so since you have no other questions and it already sounds like you're on board, even though we're supposed to be doing this video to convince you to get it, we're going to ignore that fact and get on to the skill tree. because I think this is something you're interested in because you did bring up the skill tree in your just when you were talking about Diablo, and I personally felt the skill tree was pretty interesting, but Cameron definitely had more time to spend on it, as he didn't bother to tell anybody else about the beta. So Cameron, why don't you talk about the skill tree?
So the skill tree was actually pretty cool. It goes back more akin to how Diablo 2's skill trees were set up. Blows the whole rune system of Diablo 3 out the water. That is by far clear. You get to start out with a basic skill, which is the ability that you use to generate your class resources. I believe each class had 5 options. I could be wrong. Again, I only have experience with 2, and I haven't watched a lot of the gameplay on the other classes. But each of these skills that you start out with has 5 levels that you can put into it, and those skills all have smaller skill trees that branch off from them. You get 1 improvement skill. It does things such as adding additional damage or a stunning effect or a debilitating effect of some sort. And then the real interesting part is the secondary branches. You can only pick 1 branch, and that branch really gives the characteristic to your skill. You have the options of either, again, higher damage or a different damage type, or another impairment ability. It does vary from skill to skill, so you're not going to see the same type of options for everything you get, but it is something that is a lot more different as far as how you can customize. Yeah.
So I know I played the archer character, basically the assassin, and went the archer route. I had vulnerability with the necromancer and the druid. What were their debuff types, for lack of a better word, at this point?
For the necromancer and the druid, I have to be honest, I focused solely on my damage output. I wasn't really keen on a lot of the debuffs. I did a little bit more research later on for some of my higher abilities, and for some of those extra skill trees that I was talking about, they called out for debuffs, and it wasn't until I started realizing those that I looked at others. But as far as I understand, almost each class should have started with at least 1 debuff ability. I could not tell you what it is. I would have to do research on it, which I'm planning on anyways.
Didn't you say necromancer was like decompose or something like that?
Was just the name of the skill. It was just
okay.
channeled, it was channeled damage, and it got stronger as I leveled it up, and I could give it benefits that allowed the necromancer minions to do better damage against anything it was decomposing. And then I believe I actually did have an option to get a stun from constant damage from decompose as one of the 2 side skill trees, but I cannot remember what my immediate debuff was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then after you got your basic skills, you would then go to your core skill abilities. This was another set of 5 abilities that you would get. This spends your class resource, very much so like you did in Diablo 3. You would farm up your generated resource and then spend it to use more powerful attacks. This is where a lot of your other abilities, such as additional debuffs, would come in, or any of your widespread damage or high single target damage, depending on the class. Again, you had the same branching skills. What was very impressive was the fact that the core skill tree selection area had passive skills that you could get, and those passive skills either implemented a total feature of your skill abilities, or it would improve your class attributes. For example, the necromancers all had buffs towards all their minions, or they would have something that says, oh yeah, all the debuffs you apply now do an extra thing. So it was an interesting way of doing it. It gave me a lot more customization with the character instead of, basic assassin and Diablo 3 arrow that now does spinning, seeking, homing rocket for 1 shot. And that I got out of it.
I did think it was interesting. Like, you'd have this little circle there, and then from there there'd be like these 5, all these little spots, and they kind of like, well, some are for this type of damage, some are doing for this, and then from there it had like little, like you were saying, had little branches that came off of it. So it was kind of cool to see all that, because it did felt like you were more into the development. Not only did character creation give you the fact that you're involved with your character, but now you're actually involved in his growth, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, the fact that you can make the ability sets that you chose and even how they worked more towards how you wanted to play the class really did give towards that whole "this is your character" feel that we talked about with the character customization, because it felt more like you had a decision instead of just going, okay, I unlocked this ability, let's move on to use it until I get to the next one, which was one of the big problems with Diablo 3 that I felt, was you unlocked abilities by level, and until you got upgrades on them, the next thing you unlocked was always almost better. So definitely a big change that has improved my opinion of the upcoming Diablo 4.
Josh, do you have any questions, about the skill tree, or like your impressions of what we've said about it so far?
I mean, the skill tree sounds better than 3 by far. By far. I mean, the only thing is that how would you guys feel about like the teamwork aspect, like where one character is doing DPS and one character is stunning, or just doing some sort of like let's say you have a party of 4, one person focuses on healing, one person focuses on raining down arrows, one person focuses on magic. Like, do they all intertwine to help make the game easier in an aspect working as a team?
I feel like the characters are unique enough, especially with how they do damage, that when you're teaming up with a party, like I believe I had options of being able to make characters vulnerable, and I believe Cameron F was saying something about how he had some abilities that his minions could feed off of vulnerable targets. So it's basically his characters could do more damage. If Cameron, if you want to correct me on that, his characters could do more damage because I kept making some of the targets vulnerable. So it was like we were kind of in sync on how we were just doing damage. It wasn't all just a one person, throw the barbarian in there and everybody just stand back like, yeah, he's almost done. Oh, he's doing that whirl thing. Okay, now we can go. It didn't feel like that at all. It felt like definite teamwork was going on. What are your impressions, Cameron?
Yeah, the synergy abilities, while not very distinct, it wasn't like you had if you're playing with this class, you get bonuses for this. But everybody seemed to have ways of working off the various debuffs and crowd control abilities, as well as implementing them themselves. And again, we come down to the idea of, depending on how you're playing your character, you can be a single target damage dealer that focuses on burning out the elites while your friend is right next to you, blowing up huge crowds of enemies with various abilities. So you really do get that synergy and that focus go hand in hand when you're making your characters, because again, you're playing with a party of 4. Granted, normal RPG party dynamics don't quite qualify for Diablo. We all kind of get that, where it's everybody's just throwing rounds downfield and hoping for the best. But you can stack your triggers of abilities. One person can throw down their slow first, and the next person who benefits from the slow can then make everybody vulnerable. The next person can then call down a big AoE effect that makes anything vulnerable frozen, and then the next person blows frozen things up. Like, there's just a constant stream of effects that you can easily do that make the party gameplay a lot more fun. And one thing I will pitch in is, with how they've done effects in this, it's not as chaotic as Diablo 3's were, so you can actually see what's going on instead of just a zillion lasers lighting your screen like a rave in the middle of the night. So definitely.
Yeah, that definitely, you can keep track of what the hell you're trying to hit, so that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, a lot better for party synergy.
Yeah. Any other questions, Josh?
As far as what I'm hearing, it sounds a lot more interesting. I mean, willing to give it a shot, but that's
not quite yet. We still got to tell you about the other stuff. You're on the fence, right?
Yeah, I'm on the fence. I'm teetering. I'm the fucking, what is it, Humpty Dumpty right now.
So I think that's going to be a good spot to wrap up part 1 of our Diablo 4 review. Do stick around or watch the next video, because we will be doing a part 2 where we talk more in depth on the gameplay of the demo, the maps, the events, and things like that, like the real play of the game instead of just getting into character creation at this point. So, thanks for sticking around.